Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Matt Ewalt, and I serve the Texas Tribune as Senior Director of Events and Live Journalism. Welcome to those joining us in person here in San Antonio and from around the state for our program this evening titled Texas's Voucher Program, How It Works and How to Apply. Last year, the Texas legislature passed Senate Bill 2, providing $1 billion in funding to create Texas Education Freedom Accounts, a voucher program allowing families to apply for private school tuition, tutoring, or homeschool expenses. Applications for the 2026-2027 school year are open now through March 17th. And from the numbers we know already to date, we know that demand for this limited funding is expected to be high. Our program tonight is for any and all Texas families interested in learning more about who may be eligible, how the program works, how to apply, and key considerations for families deciding whether to participate. We will begin tonight with a conversation with Travis Pillow, spokesperson for Texas Education Freedom Accounts, to learn more about the program itself. And then we will learn from several San Antonio and Texas school officials about the application process and some of the questions they're receiving from families interested in the program. So our program will run approximately an hour, and we will have time for a brief Q&A. To get to as many questions as possible, you can submit questions through our Q&A portal at texastribune.org/ask. You will also find a QR code on your program for those who are here with us in the studio. We do want to thank our host, Texas Public Radio. For the many folks joining virtually from both San Antonio and around the state, this really is a beautiful event space here in downtown San Antonio. We also want to thank our media partner, the San Antonio Report. They will be hosting the 11th Annual San Antonio Regional Education Forum on March 31st. The title for this year's event is The New Normal: How Student-Centered Funding is Changing the Education Landscape. And you can learn more about this event at sanantonioreport.org. I also want to thank those around the state who make the journalism of the Tribune, including events like this, possible by becoming Texas Tribune members. To learn more, or if you'd like to support the work of the Tribune, you can visit texastribune.org/support. So let's get started with tonight's program. As I mentioned, we begin with a conversation with Travis Pillow, spokesperson for Texas Education Freedom Accounts. We'll learn more about Travis's work in conversation with moderator for tonight, the Tribune's editor-in-chief, Matthew Watkins. With that, I thank our audience, both in person and online, and turn the program over to Matthew.
All right, thanks, Matt, and thank you, Travis, for being here.
Thank you for the opportunity.
All right, so the Texas Education Freedom Accounts have been a dominant issue in Texas politics for years, really. A lot of debate, dating back to multiple legislative sessions. These measures passed last legislative session. The debate is over, and these are now going into account. We are in the application period for parents to gain access to this. This is a period that has been, run by your agency, your organization. I know you've been very involved in it. So what I'm going to do first and foremost is just sort of hand it over to you to give us your spiel of what do parents need to know in order to apply for these accounts.
Well, thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to share. So far, we launched applications on February 4th, and we have seen more demand for this program than any new year one school choice program in the nation's history. Perhaps that's to be expected. Everything's bigger in Texas, but as we sit here today, we've got more than 2,000 schools signed up to participate and more than 115,000 students who have applied to participate. You mentioned a little bit that this has been a long-running debate. The push for school choice in Texas really started in the 1990s, and so there are episodes of Seinfeld that are newer than the push for school choice in Texas, and now that it's finally here, we do have the opportunity to look across the national landscape and look at the 20 other states that have launched programs like this, learn what's gone well, the best of what they've figured out, as well as what's gone wrong and how we can improve upon it. And so that's really shaped our agency's approach to launching this new program. I want to briefly point to three lessons that I think we've learned that families will see when they apply. The first of those is we really want to prioritize the families with the greatest needs. And so the Texas legislature created a framework where If demand exceeds the funding that's available in year one, and we expect that will happen, students with disabilities are going to move to the front of the line. Low-income students and middle-income students will then be prioritized. And so what that really is going to do is it's going to ensure that in year one of the program, when funding is limited, that limited funding goes to the students who most need new opportunities. The second thing that we've learned is that we want to give families time. So a lot of times when a new program launches, you get this day one kind of Taylor Swift ticket sort of experience where people are surging onto the website, potentially crashing the servers, overwhelming with demand. We want to give people time to where there's plenty of time for that parent of a child who needs to get an IEP from their local school district, or that single parent who needs to line up childcare, that they have time to apply and to participate. And so this program is not first come, first serve. We did see that really big day one surge in demand, over 42,000 applications submitted on day one. But we want to encourage families that you have until March 17th to get your application in, gather all your documents. And so we really wanted to create a process that was going to be accommodating. And then I think the third lesson is that we really want to provide a user-friendly experience for families. So our ultimate boss, Comptroller Hancock, he comes from the world of private business, and he has really encouraged us to think about this program in a customer-centric way. The parent is a customer. How do we give them a great experience? And so when families apply for this program, they're really going to need 3 documents. First of all, a Texas state ID to prove their residency, a federal tax return that will prove their income, and then if their child has a disability, you're going to want to have documentation of your child's disability. They're all alternatives. You can learn about that at educationfreedom.texas.gov. But we've created sort of a mobile-friendly application where parents can apply on their mobile phone. It usually takes within minutes, and then we're able to verify families' information automatically in many cases. And so we are actually one of the first states that does not have an income tax, but that needed to verify income. We do that with the federal tax return. And the goal there is how can we innovate and make this program as easy for families to use and access as possible. That's part of how we expand opportunities for as many students as we can.
Okay, very good. So you mentioned 115,000 students who have already applied. Matt mentioned at the top that there's $1 billion in funding for this program. I would say maybe typical amount for an account will be like a little bit over $10,000, though of course I know that there's a difference if you're homeschooling or children with disabilities have access to more money on that. But what that suggests to me is that we already have a situation, not surprisingly, where supply will be outpaced by demand, which means that the prioritization system that you kind of mentioned will come into effect. Can you help us understand what that prioritization system is? Like, how will it be determined, who's going to get access to these accounts?
So at the front of the line are students with disabilities whose household makes less than 500% of the federal poverty level. And so that's about $165,000 a year for a family of 4. If you're in that income bracket and your child has a disability, those are the first priority. Those students also may qualify for additional funding if they have an active IEP on file with the state. They can potentially receive up to $30,000. The goal there is to give those families additional funding to procure additional services. So maybe you're paying your school tuition with your Education Freedom account, but then you also need some speech therapy, occupational therapy, tutoring, other special education services to be successful. So we give those families enhanced funding. The second priority is going to be low-income students, and so that's those earning 200% of the federal poverty level or less. That's about $66,000 a year for a family of 4. Those families are the second priority group. And then the third priority group is those middle-income families making less than 500% of the federal poverty level. And then after that, it's open to all families, regardless of income, but we prioritize students who previously had attended a public school. And so part of the goal there is, frankly, you have seen headlines from other states where a lot of the participants in these year one programs are people who are already in a private school or people who have had, just there's limited funding available and some of the people who need new opportunities the most get denied that opportunity. What we want to do is put those people who need new opportunities at the front of the line.
Do you know the breakdown of who has been applying so far?
So from an income standpoint, we really are seeing a pretty broad diversity where it roughly breaks down about one-third, one-third, one-third. About one-third of families who have applied so far are in that low-income category. About one-third are in that middle-income category between 200 and 500% of federal poverty level. And then about one-third are in that higher-income group.
And then it's essentially a lottery, right? If for the people who will find out, especially for the higher income folks to find out whether they made it in or not. When should parents expect to find out whether, their child will receive an account?
So we're going to start notifying families in April. Basically, we're going to conduct a lottery where we'll fund that first priority group and then work our way through to make sure that we're allocating funding to the highest priority students. And then families will have an opportunity to select and confirm their enrollment in a participating private school. That's going to happen in that sort of May, June, July timeframe as we start to really get excited for the where this program really starts to take effect, and that's when kids go back to school in August.
And that leads to my next question, which is essentially my understanding is you do not need to have designated which school you will be attending in order to apply or be accepted into the program. How then does that work for parents, from step one to step two there?
Yeah, so and that's a really good point because I mentioned earlier we have over 2,000 schools participating, but that number is growing every day. We've got more schools getting added to the program, and certainly we want families to, as the selection grows, we want families to have access to that full range of available options. And so we have a user-friendly platform. We've partnered with a company called Odyssey, where families will be able to log in, and if you are receiving funding for this school year, you will be able to select the school that you would like your child to attend. It's important to note, first of all, that you can start selecting schools now, right when you apply. You don't have to at this point. That will have to be complete by July. But also that, families... So families do not have to select their school at this stage. There will be more and more schools that are coming available, and that whether you select a school, that it does affect your available funding because students who are attending a participating private school can receive a larger funding allocation.
What if you don't end up getting into the school of your choice? What happens to that money that you've perhaps been awarded through this program?
So you will be able to select other schools, and then if a family ultimately declines to participate, then we will begin to bring more students off the wait list.
Understood. And you talked a little bit about the different prioritization. I mean, when this was a topic that was being debated, one of the things that came up was a concern by people of, this will be a program that will be more accessible to wealthier families, either because they have the know-how, the education, or are already connected to private schools in order to get access to it. We're now in this situation where the prioritization is for lower incomes. What, if any, kind of effort is being done to make sure that the less resourced families know about this program and are getting access to this benefit?
So we have been working not just the comptroller's office, but I think it's really important to remember. There's an African proverb: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. We have been going fast. The comptroller likes to say we're moving at the speed of business to get this program launched in year one. But we've been really reliant on partners across the state who are, there's great organizations in cities across Texas who have been helping us to hold events around the state where families can apply, fill out their application, where we're raising awareness. We've been running targeted advertising and outreach campaigns. We really want to make sure that there's broad awareness of this opportunity. And one of the things that Texas has really been blessed with is a great ecosystem of organizations across the state who are assisting in that effort to raise awareness, and then to also communicate to our office, when families are having challenges getting documentation for their child's IEP, or when there's confusion about making sure that you need to apply for your child's school separately from applying for the program itself, helping identify those issues families are running into, communicating them to our office so that we can meet the needs of as many families as possible.
I also want to ask, when the rules were being set by your office in terms of schools that can enroll, who gets what money and everything, one of the big topics that came up was pre-Ks, right? And I think that was an area that was maybe less discussed in the conversation around the bill, but I think has been a benefit and opportunity that has surprised some people, is that, if you are sending your kid to certain pre-Ks around the state, and your child is eligible in a certain way, you might be able to use this funding to pay for that. Can you explain how that can be used and how kind of pre-K factors into this program?
Yeah, so you're right that has been sort of a sleeper issue. So basically, students across Texas, pre-K through 12, are eligible to participate in the program. But in order to participate for a pre-K student, you must meet the eligibility criteria for the state's pre-K programs. Those criteria tend to be more specific than the broad eligibility for K through 12 students. And so we want to make sure that families are aware that you have to meet specific conditions, such as being from a different language background, or meeting income requirements that would qualify you for pre-K services in order to participate in this program. But if your school is accredited by the state, or is participating in is a highly rated Texas Rising Star provider, you can enroll through this program for a child in pre-K and receive a full funding allotment.
Sounds good. What else do parents need to know about this? As let's see, it's the 19th. We're a little bit less than a month away from the deadline. What else do you want parents to know about this process, the program, anything like that?
So everything you need is at educationfreedom.texas.gov. Apply by March 17th, and I mentioned it earlier, but we really want to drive this home, that the time that you submit your application has no bearing on your child's eligibility. We're going to work through the prioritization framework that prioritizes student with disabilities and then works by family income, and it allocates the available funding through a lottery process. So there is no first come, first served. If you're looking at the application numbers and wondering, could my child still get a spot in this program? The answer to that is absolutely yes. And we want to make sure that as many families as possible get their applications in before March 17th. Also, submit early. And if you need to log back in, edit your information, update it. We've made that very easy to do. So we would just encourage families, log on educationfreedom.gov and apply.
How long does it take to fill out an application?
So some of that's going to depend on what your documentation is, but we've heard a lot of reports that it can be 15 minutes or less, and you can do it right on your mobile phone.
Excellent. Travis, thank you for walking us through this process. We will now bring up our group of school leaders, and Matt will introduce them. Thank you, Travis.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Travis, thank you so much. As we go to the next part of our program, just wanted to make a couple announcements here, including a couple Tribune events that will be happening next week and the week following related to the upcoming primary. On February 24th, our podcast, Tribcast, will be hosting a preview of the primary. Matthew and our law and politics reporter, Eleanor Klibanoff, will be hosting a panel for discussion of where the state's most consequential races stand and where their outcomes, what their outcomes could mean for Texas. And then on March 4th, following the primary, we'll break down the results. That's Eleanor leading a panel of experts, including some surprises that we'll announce soon. So we are moving into the next panel, which includes a number of school officials, again, speaking to the value of the voucher program to Texas families and being able to answer some of your bigger questions. So let me very quickly introduce our panel. This includes Stephanie Gray, owner of Books and Bibs Childcare and Learning Academy, April Halfrish, principal at St. Matthew Catholic School, Jennifer Sisk, principal at Holy Name Catholic School, and Jennifer Allman, executive director for the Texas Catholic Conference of Bishops. A reminder that you'll be able to submit questions at texastribune.org/ask, and we'll get to questions following this conversation. And with that, I turn the program over to Matthew.
All right, thank you, Matt. And thank you all for being here and participating in this conversation. Jennifer Allman, I want to start with you because I know the Texas Catholic Conference of Bishops has been supportive of this for a long time. I'm sure there's a lot of excitement from y'all that this is actually happening. I know that there's, we're in San Antonio as we record this. There are 40-something Catholic schools in the city. Maybe I have my numbers wrong. You can correct me. 35. Okay,
35
excellent.
in San Antonio.
Even more all across the state.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about just what do you think this will mean for Catholic schools in Texas now that this program is in place?
I think it's going to be a phenomenal opportunity for families who didn't perceive Catholic education as accessible to find out that it is. We've always had financial assistance available to families, but sometimes families are nervous to apply for that, but they're much more comfortable with a program like this. And so what we're seeing is a lot of the families in the pews who are in our Sunday school programs are now saying, okay, now I think I'm ready and can take the next leap to enter into Catholic education. We have 225 Catholic schools participating in the program across the state, which is 99% of our schools. We just have 4 schools out of the entire state who are waiting a little bit to figure out how it's going to work within their school environment. So we're very excited. And in particular, it was a major priority of the bishops throughout the legislative process that this bill prioritized the poor and vulnerable, because that's our teaching. And we've always tried to make sure that our schools prioritize having spaces available for the poor and vulnerable, and this helps us to do that even more.
Excellent. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit, we have 3 leaders of schools up here on the stage, and I want to hear a little bit about what this is expected to mean, on the ground for those schools. April, you are right here next to me, so I will start with you. First of all, just tell us a little bit about St. Matthew's, your school. Who are you serving? What grades are you teaching? Those types of details.
Yes, thank you for having me this evening. I am blessed to have 3-year-old all the way up through 14-year-old students at our school. So we service pre-K3 through 8th grade students. At our campus in particular, we are blessed with 630 students on our campus. So we are a very large community. We're in a very sweet spot in San Antonio, I'll say, right along I-10 and close to 410, even close to 1604. So Medical Center, USAA, Valero. So we have a lot of families who will commute in for work purposes, and they found St. Matthew, and it's been a home for many of our families. We're blessed with a strong faith community, a very strong parish, and we're very excited for this opportunity for these families who they sacrifice, whether it's bringing their kids in each day or so we're excited for our current families, but also for the opportunities of maybe some of our parishioners and even people who, again, thought that Catholic education wasn't attainable for their children before.
Well, let's talk about that. I mean, I would imagine for most of your students, it'll be who receive the benefit, it'll be the 10,000
Correct.
amount. How does that compare to tuition? What is that going to actually mean for, parents' ability to pay for the school?
Correct. So we try to make our tuition fairly competitive with most schools around San Antonio, because we want to be able for parents to pay their bills along with paying their tuition each month. And with this, it will cover our full tuition along with possibly uniforms and lunches and things like that. What I do like about this program is that parents are able to choose how much of that funding they like to use. So if they want to bank it, through the years, then they can apply those funds later on for their high school. And I'm a parent of 1 8th grader and 1 high schooler. So next year I'll have 2 high schoolers. So I can understand the benefit of that right there,
Okay, so Holy Name Catholic School. Tell us a little bit about that and about your school
Yes.
and and what you expect here.
Yes. So we're very excited to have this opportunity. We're also a pre-K 3 through 8th grade. We are on the south side of San Antonio, and we are one of the only schools that are still open on the south side of San Antonio. So we're very excited for our community. They have jumped on board with this. We had many families who came out and have participated on campus, asked for assistance, and done the applications with us. We have several who reached out and said it was so easy. We did it online, and we've really tried to reach out to those families, even who have come in the past, but have not been able to financially afford the tuition, and so have chosen to wait and maybe come back later. This was a great opportunity to reach back out to those families and say, this is what's coming. This is a great opportunity to try and just apply. We've reached out to local churches around us, to our parish, to churches that are in our area, because a lot of those families are the ones that are interested in having their children attend, but for whatever reason, financially, it might have been too difficult. So we are very excited to provide our community with this opportunity.
And can you tell us a little bit about just the sort of broader demographics of your school? Like who from the community are you bringing in right now, and do you think that'll change at all under this program?
You know, we have a lot of students who are in our general area. We sit near Brook City Base, so we do get students who are from the neighborhood, but we also get from Floresville, Elmendorf, outside of San Antonio, and they want this for their children, so they make that route in. A lot of parents will do that sacrifice when they find a good fit for their students, when they find that their child is happy and safe and comfortable, they will make that route, whatever it may be. I know my son is at a private school, and it takes me an hour to get him school every day, but he loves it there. He's thriving there, and so that is part of the sacrifice. But this program is going to allow that opportunity for so many more families that they just didn't have that before.
Stephanie, tell us about Books and Bibs childcare.
Books and Bibs, I have been open for 8 years. We are on the heart of the east side. We're on East Commerce, predominantly low-income area. So we're super excited about it because a lot of our families have problems with before and after school care and transportation, and whereas our tuition will encompass all of those things, so it makes it a one-stop shop, and so we're super excited about it, and we're hoping that some of the families that couldn't quite afford tuition and maybe didn't qualify for the state CCS program will now be able to afford it and come to our program.
And we were talking a little bit before about the expectation of, maybe some who aren't paying tuition or anything like that, but might be able to use it for after-school care and everything like that. Yes. Tell us about just like, what are the conversations you're having with parents right now about what's available and how they might think about using this? Well,
the main conversation is, what is it? I didn't think it was for me. So we have to do a lot of educating the parents that, no, this is especially for you. So that's mainly the conversation. And then it's like, oh, okay. And then we can let them know all the things that it include, even uniforms and your kid, you're not having to worry about going to get your kid after school and worried about who's going to keep them, who's going to watch them, because they can't afford the tuition. So the conversation is mainly educating them and then getting them excited about us being a one-stop shop.
Has this been something the church has been talking about across the state,
Yes.
that education process? Tell us a little
Yeah,
bit about
I
that.
think one of the things that she mentioned that I think is really important for people to understand is that when the bill was designed, the focus was on the poor and vulnerable, and our outreach is focused on the poor and vulnerable. So one of the things the Catholic Church has done throughout the state of Texas is each diocese has partnered with their local Catholic Charities agency to do outreach with the clients of Catholic Charities. One of the things we see is very frequent among our low-income clients at Catholic Charities is they might move homes, move apartment complexes every 6 months, because when their lease is up, they save $200 per month by moving and get 30 days free. And if their child's in a public school, then they're changing public schools sometimes every 6 months. So by letting them know about this program, giving them a school of stability, even if they're having to move their apartment each time, their school can stay the same. That is transformational for helping people get out of generational poverty. And so we're really looking at this as, yes, an opportunity to provide access to Catholic education, but more importantly for a lot of our poor and vulnerable in the community, it's providing them access out of generational poverty. And we have a great deal of hope that that will be the reality for a lot of families.
I'm wondering what y'all think about just the broader logistical challenges that low-income families often face as well. I mean, you talked about, parents going, spending an hour taking their kids to and from school. Tuition can obviously be a big barrier for low-income parents to send their kids to a private school, but things like, the public school is close to where I live. There's a school bus that picks them up and takes them home every day. Some of those other challenges, I mean, have y'all thought about, are there concerns about other things like that affecting access? And are there things that the schools can be doing to try to address those needs and concerns as well?
I think that's a really great point, and gives me some thought on that, because we're blessed that we're right on Wurzbach Parkway, so we're on a bus route. We're all in the traffic each morning too. So thinking about that, and maybe that's a way to outreach to the community too. Like, hey, did you know that we're right on a bus route right in front? I mean, we have officers right there in front that direct traffic, and they, we could even start a program with walking. So thank you for giving me that thought. I appreciate that. And we're also very close. We have a very large neighborhood behind us. So I think you don't have walkers to school anymore. Everybody drives their kids to school or they take a bus. So I think that gives those families too a great opportunity to, walk your children to school each day and just have that right in your back. I mean, really right in our backyard is the whole entire neighborhood. So thank you.
I would add to that, one of the things that, and Jennifer mentioned this, I think it's really important. I think we often underestimate what a parent will do for their child. And so what we see often is, we had one state rep who was not going to vote for the bill because he said, there's no private schools in my district. I'm not doing this. And we were like, okay, we understand. Then he called me back like a couple weeks later. He said, I talked about this at a town hall, and several parents came up to me and said, I drive 45 minutes into San Antonio every single day to go to work. 45 minutes in the car with my kid to talk is priceless. I would drive into San Antonio to take my kid to a private school and have that time in the car to talk about their day every day, because I'm driving it anyway. So I think we forget about those options. We also have a lot of schools that will provide bus transportation from one Catholic parish to a Catholic school 20 miles away because it's the closest high school. We see that a lot in the high school. So I think our community is very creative for helping people to solve those obstacles. If a parent wants a particular educational environment for their child, they're going to move mountains to get it, and we're going to help them.
One of the points I wanted to make was a lot of the schools near us don't allow the pre-K 3s to even ride the school bus. So one of the pluses for us is you don't have to worry about that. It's right here on site. And I've heard a lot of conversation about what the things that we'll do for our kids. They're driving an hour, driving 45 minutes. However, the lower income families don't have that option. They don't have the money to pay for gas to drive 45 minutes 5 days a week. So sometimes the economical situation dictates what you can do for it. We all want to do a whole lot for our kids, but financially, can we? So this is one of the barriers for my location, because we have 6 weeks through kinder that they're right there on site, and that's one less worry. Kids getting lost off the school bus or not being able to ride the school bus. So it's all on site.
So, I want to talk to that parent. As someone who drives my kid to school, how do you get your kid to talk to you during that drive? Because
That's a different obstacle. The legislature can't solve that one for us.
All right, well, fine. I'll work on it myself. I want to talk a little bit about capacity. One of the questions is, will this expand availability if there's not additional slots at the schools for these students? How are each of y'all thinking about, how much room you have for new types of families that might be able to take advantage of this? And does this cause y'all to think about expanding capacity in any kind of way?
I think to start, we looked at a lot of our schools are not currently at capacity. So we started there. What would capacity look like at our campuses? How many more students can we fit in each grade level without having to add additional staff or without having to look at making those adjustments yet? Because there are seats available in most of our schools. The good thing is we also are working as a community. So if for whatever reason, we're full in this grade level, but right down the road, if you go about 10 more minutes, St. Matthew's is right there. They still have some availability. Or if they're looking for something in particular, I want a dual language, or I'm looking for a micro school. We know enough about each other, and we work together so much that we're able to provide that type of information to families who reach out to us, whether it ends up being at our campus or another campus. But we're all very different in how many seats we still have available. But in working together, we're able to have that collaboration. But I think for most of us, we have plenty of space and open hearts. We're ready for them, so as many who are welcome to come as possible.
Do you see this? How do you view this from a statewide perspective?
So statewide, we've survey our schools every year on their capacity, and so I can tell you statewide, on average, Catholic schools have 25 to 30 open seats, and we can probably hold an additional. Well, actually, no, it's 75 open seats per Catholic school, so we can probably hold an additional 25,000, 26,000 kids statewide in our Catholic schools. In our private schools as a whole, all different types of private schools, from any denomination or secular private schools, it's around 89,000 open seats that are available. So we can meet a great deal of capacity. The program is only going to fund 75, maybe 80,000 families at the end of the day. So we actually have the capacity for the new families now. But one of the things that we have been working on within the Catholic Church is really growing our capacity and opening new schools. So I know in the Archdiocese of San Antonio, they've opened a new school last year in Bernie. And, several of our dioceses are on track to open between 3 and 4 new schools per year statewide for the next several years. And we expect that to grow, especially as the micro school movement grows. We actually have Catholic micro schools opening. We have one bishop talking about a Catholic farming school where kind of it's an FFA model. We have career technology schools opening with welding programs and technology programs. So I think a lot of the education innovation that you see going on across the country is going to really be fostered in Texas because of this program, and not just in the Catholic community.
Stephanie, how are you thinking about that capacity question?
That one is challenging for us because we have to follow the Texas licensing rules. We have capacity levels for the center, for the center, and then per room. We do have open seats. It is limited. So I am pushing my current families to apply first, and then, we're trying to get new people in. But it is definitely a challenge because even if I had another room, if that room isn't licensed, I can't put kids in it. And because it's all in the center, we have to follow those rules. So we have plenty of space, but we're not a huge center. Like my capacity is 118, and I already have a lot that's there. I do have space, but it is limited.
Tell me just, what's the conversation like on y'all's campuses right now about this? Like, what are you hearing from parents? What are you hearing from, the community?
I'll be honest, I've been pleasantly surprised with this whole process, to be honest. I think the fear of the unknown is how's it going to work? And the process is fairly simple, 10, 15 minutes, and you're eligible or you're not. And it's very straightforward. And now it's the waiting game, of course, for our families. Waiting game for us, too, as well. We've been very busy with applications coming in and meeting with families and students. And it's been a true blessing just to see the excitement on families' faces. A little bit of sense of, not fear, that's the wrong word, but just... am I going to get it? Am I going to be awarded with this? So I think there's just, now it's the waiting game, I think. But I think the edge of, is this application, is it going to be complicated, or am I going to be eligible? That's gone. We do host coffee talks on campus. I actually have one next week to answer any looming questions that some parents might have. But they've been really good too about reaching out. We've also done pulpit talks at the church. We've hosted weekend when the kids are in their CCD classes. You know, we'll host families to come in, answer any questions that they might have. Some of those families are current families too that are still curious and have questions. But it's been a really learning process. I think not only for the families but for us too. And I think once April rolls around. It's a great name, by the way. Then God willing, we'll have a better idea of kind of where we are and how we can service our families. But it's very exciting.
We've just gotten a lot of positive feedback. Initially, like she was mentioning, it was the unknown. Well, how long is it going to take? What if I don't know how to do it? So we tried to do as many opportunities as possible for families to come in, right, at every campus if you need help or you just want somebody to do it with you. But that was a great opportunity for us, too, to actually see the process and what it looks like. That way we could answer more questions if a family chose to do it at home. And I got to this question, and what's it asking, and what is my ID number? Those things really tremendously helped us because we could be there with the parents and go through the process, but they were pleasantly surprised. Mm-hmm. They were, I think, anticipating that it was going to be much more challenging than it was, but it was a very simple process, and they're very excited now, just even to get like, oh, I'm eligible, they're excited even for this opportunity and for it to have run as smoothly as it did.
Can you stick with the two schools here for a second, but tell me a little bit about the application process. I mean, are there admissions standards at both of your schools? Like, what's the time frame in terms of when people are applying? When are they finding out whether they got a spot in the actual school? Setting aside briefly the voucher conversation.
We've been swamped at my school. I'm very blessed, I will say. So really for us, it's, reaching out to families, signing up to come in for, at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we're not only the best school for you, but also for your family. Is it the right fit? Because what my school can offer is not necessarily the same as what Jennifer's can offer, and vice versa. And that's what's so wonderful about having 35 Catholic schools within the Archdiocese of San Antonio is that there are so many options. I interviewed a family today and I said, why is it that you want to come here? And they said, because we want larger class sizes for our kids. When a lot of times you might hear the opposite. So it's interesting to kind of hear and interview families just to see kind of where they are, what they're looking for exactly. And I think we're blessed too in that we have a very large CYO program. So a lot of these people are very familiar with St. Matthew, the St. Matthew community. They already have friends in the community too. And I think seeing that now, Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts are very robust at our campus as well. And just, and I'm not going to ask them, what was holding you back before? But, one can assume that it might have been finances. So it's great to see that excitement now too from those families. So.
And we've had a good influx of families who at some point had maybe come on a tour before or had visited the campus before, but for whatever reason, it was just financially not what they could do at this moment. We also had families that were just part of the parish or a parish around us who saw this as an opportunity. And parents and I think families have they're really looking because I will get a lot of phone calls. Hey, I saw you online, or we saw the video that you just made. So they are doing their research and they are looking to try to find what they think is the best fit for their children. But schools are trying to be as open as possible. We're inviting families in to take a look around, to take tours, do open houses. Our application process isn't necessarily changing. So we are still following the same procedures, but we are getting, I think, more families coming in at this point than I would normally at this time of the school year.
When do kids know, whether they've gotten into these schools?
Fairly quickly, to be honest. Like we've been accepting families already.
So it's not like a college process where everyone enrolls at the same time and finds out at the same time.
Actually, maybe it'd be helpful if I gave a statewide perspective, because I think what I can give you is a perspective of not just Catholic schools, but kind of across the board. Yeah. Typical private school admissions take place January to March. But they're often open enrollment. You can still apply in April, but it's really, if you're a family and you're trying to decide, go apply now, because now is the time that the interviews are happening and that capacity is starting to be reached. Most private schools release the information to parents on the final decisions the week before spring break. typically. And that doesn't mean that you can't come after. My daughter's, went to in 8th grade, went to the high school in April that she decided she changed her mind and wanted to go there, and she got in. So you can still come anytime, but coming early and applying now is beneficial across any school type, not exclusive to Catholic schools.
Does this make it complicated, given that there are presumably some parents who don't know whether they'll be getting the financial help
A little
yet?
bit, but my reaction to the couple of the stumbling blocks or things that have come up is like, last year no one got an Education Freedom account. So this year, 75,000 or 80,000 kids are going to get them. So we might have some little hiccups where we say to a family that you go ahead and apply for our financial aid program in case you don't get a TEFA award. And it will be, if you get a TEFA award, then you don't need the financial assistance. But if you don't get an award, you've got the assistance and you can still come here. One of the things you asked earlier about what was our hope in terms of the impact, part of our hope is that kids we're currently serving through financial assistance will get these awards so we can serve those waitlisted kids with our financial assistance money. So we want kids to apply now, not to wait till they have the award, because we still want to try to serve them if we're the right fit. And I think that's a common sentiment among all types of private schools.
Stephanie, what about for your school? Obviously a different type of school. What is the kind of enrollment process for you?
So for us, it's also the same thing. We want to make sure that families are a good fit. For my program particularly, we do request everybody take a tour of the facility. They learn about our program. I then do a parent orientation with each family to let them know our expectations for families and children. And not everybody is a good fit, even though people think, oh, it's childcare, anybody can go. For my program, no. We want to have the right fit for the family and also for the center. So it's a little bit of a process, but it's fairly quick. But those are the steps that have to be taken. It's just not a free-for-all, let's go.
Jennifer, I want to ask you about special education, right? An area that is prioritized in this program, an area that can lead to a larger amount of money in the account. Also an area that a lot of critics or opponents of this measure brought up out of the concern of you heard the sort of refrain, the public schools, serve who comes, the private schools get to pick who they serve. What are the special education offerings, and what should a parent of a child with those needs be thinking about in this process?
Yeah, I'm happy to cover that. Actually, statistically, Catholic schools and private schools in general serve a higher percentage of special ed students than public schools. Most people aren't aware of that. About 12 to 14% of the student body at a private school are special needs students, and it's about 10% at the public school. However, the types of special needs that private schools are able to work with are more like your dyslexia, your ADHD, dysgraphia, a little bit more on the specific learning disability type. But we have students in our schools with, orthopedic legs, prosthetic legs. We have deaf-blind schools throughout the state. There's a Catholic school in Tyler that called me yesterday working for 3 of their kids that are deaf-blind. And so you'd be surprised how many specialized school options are available. There's 60 schools statewide that exclusively serve special needs, including those very high-end special needs students. And so I think the most important thing for a special needs family is to make sure that the school that they are selecting, whether it's public, private, or charter, or a homeschool option, can work with the particular need their child has. And it's very important to us that we don't overpromise. So we have to be honest with a family and say, here's your IEP. We can meet 4 of the 6 accommodations. We cannot meet these 2. And sometimes parents will say, I want to go here anyway. And we'll say, it's not fair for us to do that to your child. Or we'll say, okay, let's get in an outside, and that's why this EFA, this Freedom Account, is so beneficial. Because if we say to them, we can't do speech therapy because we don't have a speech therapist, but with your EFA, you can bring in your speech therapist onto our campus and then our school is now an option when it wasn't before. And so it really opens up our ability to grow that 10 to 12%, 14% to 15 to 16%, and families to build the educational option for their child in the environment they want, not just assume I'm going to go where I'm zoned because that's the best environment. Because for a special ed kid, the school they're zoned to is not necessarily the best environment. For some of them, it's phenomenal and it is the best environment. But the whole point of this program is it's the parents' decision what is best for their child, and now they have the freedom to make it.
I'm listening to you talk. I think one thing we're all going to need to figure out is what is our shorthand for these programs, right? I was with Travis. I was calling it a TIFA. I heard you call it a TEFA.
I call it a
EFA.
TEFA. I can tell you it's easier to say TEFA and doesn't confuse people with other things.
All right. Fair enough. I will keep that in mind. I mean, one of the, as you have mentioned, the Catholic Church was a big advocate for this program. It is clear that, again, demand is outpacing supply. What are you thinking about the future of this? Do you expect to be advocating for an expansion of this program?
Absolutely. I mean, that was when we were working on the bill, that's exactly why we put into the bill that the comptroller would have to request funding for the full wait list in his next legislative appropriation request. So if we end up with 100,000 kids on a wait list, then he should request funding for all of those kids. And what we've seen, and people ask me, I've had parents say, well, what if the legislature changes their mind next session? The reality is school choice across the country, the beauty of going 35th is that we've learned a lot from those 34. There's only one state that changed their mind, and it's because their bill had a sunset date, not because the legislature proactively voted to stop it. It's because the bill started with a sunset date. So it's very different for legislators to take a vote on an unknown policy in Texas and vote for school choice. So we have a lot of legislators who voted no on the bill, who since then have come to me and said, I'm shocked how many of my constituents want this. I'm going to have to vote to support it next time. So I don't think we'll have an obstacle in funding that wait list, because once the demand is created and representatives want to vote their district, when they see the number of parents who want this in their district, they should vote their district.
I mean, there is a segment of people, people who advocate for public education who are going to be worried when they hear you say that. A worry of this is money that could be going to the public schools. What do you say to that?
Well, the bishops supported House Bill 2. I mean, we strongly supported the increase in public education. And you heard me say earlier that the most important thing is that the parent is choosing the best educational environment, public, charter, private, homeschool, that we trust our parents to make those decisions. And we have a responsibility as a state to make sure all of those options are well-funded and available. And I think we will be advocating for that funding for public schools again next session, because it's not a zero-sum game. We want to fund every educational opportunity and environment for the children of Texas, because that's the future of Texas and our economy. So there's sound reasons that supporters of school choice should also be supporters of our public schools.
April, you and I were talking beforehand about just the advice you're giving to the parents about how to use this program. I mean, one thing that we may not have touched on is you get these funds, you use it for schools like your own, which the tuition is not as high as the amount that is rewarded. There is then some that is unspent, which banks, right? It continues to say. So what are you telling? Tell our audience what you're telling parents about kind of how to think of that going forward.
If I look at my sister, I'll say, if she were given $10,000 to spend for her children's education, I think she would be lost in a way, because she's never sent her children to Catholic school or private school. She just hasn't had that, choice before. She's unfortunately not in Texas or a state that offers something like this. I think it's important to educate people that maybe are not financially used to having those kinds of funds available for spending, because uniforms, that's a cost that you think about your children's lunches. If you have a growing boy, your lunches are going to add up quickly. So I think just kind of talking with them, educating them, and really just having conversations and being kind of frank with them, I think will help them kind of through the process too. Because, for us too, it's a learning where, oh, you have your tuition payment plans that you set up, and, parents just, it comes out of your bank account, every month. Well, this is going to be a little different the way it's funded. So I think that's another way too that we need to, as leaders, educate these families on how to kind of use these funds and use it wisely too, because you don't want your child to use it on lunches,
Chocolate milk.
Exactly.
And I think too to look long term, right? So most of our schools are under that $10,000 range. So being able to kind of bank those funds, they can think about, I might have a second grader now or a fourth grader now, but if have a little bit left every year, by the time if I do choose to go to a Catholic high school and I know that my tuition might be higher, I don't have to then worry about, do I need to look somewhere else because the tuition's going to be a little bit higher, because I have been able to bank some of those funds and hopefully theoretically even pay once they get to high school, be able to continue in a Catholic school if that's what they choose.
And I would add to that, some of our schools, we've been encouraging our schools, for especially the lower income families, to meet with them and ask them, how much of your account do you intend to use for tuition? Do you still need financial aid in order to save your account money for uniforms and lunches where we can't give financial aid? So how can we work with you to budget your tuition and not just assume that the entire account goes to the private school? How can we help you to say, let's make sure that you're contributing $1,000 out of your income per year to the $8,000 tuition, and that you're contributing $5,000 out of your award, and that you're saving $2,000 of your award for rollover in case you can't contribute the $1,000. You have it available. So we use it as a budgeting tool in our financial aid conversations, and making sure it was very important to us that the lunches and uniforms and transportation were included in the bill. Because if you're asking a low-income family to leave a public school and come to a private school, you've got to be able to offer them all of those same things. And I think having those budgeting conversations is an important part of the admissions process.
Okay, I want to close with this, and I'll start with you, Stephanie. Just what is your pitch to parents to use this, consider going to our school? Like, what do parents need to know about the opportunities that your school will provide them under this program?
So my main pitch, and it's mainly to the families that are currently there and are paying out of pocket, is really, wouldn't you like to have zero tuition? And so that right there is like, yes, how do I sign up? So that's my main thing, is because I am in a low income area. The opportunity to not have to pay anything speaks for itself.
And what we're telling parents is just try. It does not hurt. There's not a fee to apply. So we are encouraging our current families, prospective families, just try. It's an easy process. We'll walk you through it. We'll help you. But if you don't try, then you'll never know. So we're just encouraging everybody to just give it an opportunity, do the application, and then we'll go from there.
Well, and what will they be getting? Obviously they'll be getting money, but what will they be getting from, going to your school?
I will tell you our mission statement, because it is all-encompassing, and I think a lot of our Catholic schools would agree with this. So the mission of St. Matthew Catholic School is to educate a strong, faith-centered community through a commitment to the spiritual, moral, intellectual, social, and physical development of each child. And what more could you want for your child?
Okay, well, we are right up at the end of our time, so I really appreciate all four of you. A big thanks to Travis as well. A great informative conversation, and look forward to learning more about how this process plays out over the next months and years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.